Hello and welcome to Unraveling Stitches. In this video, I'll show you how to sew these Pinafore-inspired dresses using my new released Anya pattern. Anya is a super versatile design that can be made as either a dress or a top. It features a close-fitting bodice with square neckline and princess seams, along with an open cross-back design and adjustable waist ties. There are two dress options in the pattern. Dress A features a full gathered skirt with elastic at the back, and Dress B features a circle skirt with zip closure. Both dresses have side seam pockets and a knee-length hem that you can customize to your liking. So in this video, I'll be focusing on the dress versions, but the process for the top is exactly the same, minus the skirt steps. Here are the materials that you'll need. Light to medium weight woven fabric with no stretch. For dress A, I will be using this checked cotton poplin and this cotton linen for dress B. Both dresses will also use the main fabric as lining. Some lightweight fusible interfacing, matching thread to your fabric, 2 4cm D-rings, for dress A, a 1cm wide elastic and a safety pin, for dress B, a 22cm long invisible zipper, scissors, pins and a hand sewing needle. Also, in addition to your iron and ironing board, I highly recommend using a tailor's hem like this one to press in the right shape for the princess seams. And finally, your copy of the Anya pattern, which you can get following the link in the description below. You'll find more information on fabric recommendations and quantities on your instructions booklet. Now it's time to cut out all your pattern pieces. For detailed cutting instructions, please refer to your pattern instructions booklet. Here's a super simple design tip for your bodice. If you're using a checked or striped fabric, for example, try to rotate the side bodice piece on your main fabric by 45 degrees. I will be doing this for dress A. And if you decide to do this, make sure you keep your interfacing with the original grain line. Note that both skirt front and back are cut from the same pattern piece, using the pattern as is for the skirt back. To cut the skirt front for dress A, fold along the top inner line like this, and for dress B, as the front is cut on the fold along the center back inner line to remove the seam allowance. When cutting, remember to transfer all notches by making small clips into the fabric, and additionally mark extra notches at the center of the pieces that are cut on the fold. Here are the pattern pieces: skirt front and back, pocket bags, back waist ties, back straps, side bodice, center front bodice, and if you're making dress B, you'll also have the skirt waist facings. Now before we dive into sewing, apply the interfacing to the wrong side of the main fabric pieces with the gluey side facing down. Use your iron to press down on the interfacing for a few seconds. Make sure you don't iron the pieces, but press them section by section instead. For the back waist ties, you will only need to apply interfacing to half lengthwise. I didn't actually do this when sewing these dresses, but it's always a good idea to stay-stitch the pieces to prevent them from stretching out of shape. So grab your center front bodice and side bodice pieces and stay-stitch them along the neckline curve and outside edges, stitching about 6 mm from the edge. If you're making dress B, also stay-stitch the waistline curve of the skirt front, skirt back, and skirt back facing. Now, starting with the bodice, follow the following steps for all versions. Start by placing the center front bodice and side bodice pieces right sides together. Then pin and sew them together along the princess seam edges, matching all notches. Do the same for both sides and for the lining pieces as well. Next, with right sides together, place the two back strap pieces onto the assembled bodice and sew them together along the shoulder edges. Be sure to pay attention to the strap shape to make sure you're placing it on the correct side. Repeat for the lining as well. Once you finish sewing, press all seams flat, then carefully notch along the princess seams by creating small triangles, being careful not to cut through the stitching line. This will ensure your princess seams lay beautifully without any excess bulk after pressing. The more curve there is, the more notches you will need to make. Finally, press all seam allowances open, using the tailor's hem for the princess seams. Now take your assembled lining bodice and trim off about 2 mm along the strap's upper edge and neckline and along the entire outside edge. This will prevent the lining from rolling over the front after the bodice is finished. Next, with right sides together, place the lining bodice onto the main bodice, then pin and sew them together along the strap's upper edge and neckline, matching the center front notch and shoulder seams. Press the seams flat, then trim the seam allowances down to 5 mm. And carefully clip along the entire seam. Press the lining towards the seam allowances and understitch the lining to the seam allowances along the entire seam 1 to 2 mm from the seam edge. This will keep the lining in place and also prevent it from rolling out. Now place the lining to the inside, wrong sides together with the main bodice, and give the seam a good press, making sure the seam line stays on the inside so it's not visible from the right side of the garment. Next, turn the bodice wrong side out again, placing the main and lining bodice right sides together and pin along the entire outside edges. To make it easier to turn the bodice over after, you can attach a cord to the inside of each strap end, like I'm doing here. Then sew them together, starting at the top of the strap, all the way down until you reach the first notch on the side bodice. Press the seams flat, then trim the seam allowances down to 5 mm, and clip the curved edges. Finally, carefully turn the bodice right side out and give the seams a good press, making sure the lining stays on the inside and is not visible from the right side. To make the waist ties, fold both pieces in half lengthwise, right sides together, then pin and sew along the top and side edge, leaving the bottom open. Press the seams flat. Then trim the seam allowances down to 5 mm and trim the corners. Finally, turn the ties right side out, pushing the corners and give them a good press. Next, with the bodice right side facing up, move the lining aside and cross the back straps. Then pin the straps end against the notches on each side edge right after the previous seam. Also place the waist ties onto the bodice 1 cm above the bottom edge and pin them in place. make sure to face the tie seams towards the bottom to keep them hidden. And now sew both waist ties and straps 5 mm from the edge just to secure them in place. Turn the bodice wrong side out and with right sides together, pin along the side remaining opening and bottom edge. Then sew starting at the side previous seam until you reach the bottom waist notch. Press the seams flat, then trim the seam allowances down to 5 mm, trim the corners and clip the bottom curved edge. Turn the entire bodice right side out and press the seams. Finally, on the bodice side edge, where the back straps are attached, understitch the lining to the seam allowances 1 to 2 mm from the seam edge. You won't be able to understitch the entire seam, so start and end where the machine presser foot allows you. Your bodice should be looking like this. Now let's dive into sewing the skirt, beginning with the skirt for dress B. Skip to this minute for dress A. Begin by finishing the center back edge of the skirt back pieces, as well as the bottom and center back edge of the skirt facing pieces. I'm using my overlocker to finish the edges, but if you don't own one, you can always use the zigzag stitch on your sewing machine. Next, with right sides together, place the facings onto the skirt, then pin and sew them together along the top edge. Press the seams flat. Then trim the seam allowances down to 5 mm and clip the curved edges. Press the facing towards the seam allowances and understitch the facing to the seam allowances 1 to 2 mm from the seam edge. Now turn the facing to the inside and give the seams a good press, ensuring the facing is not visible from the right side of the skirt. Make sure you have your zipper notch marked at the center back, 20 cm from the top. With right sides together, align both skirt back pieces along the center back edge and pin them in place. Then sew from the zipper marking all the way down to the bottom, leaving the top section open. Press the seam flat, then press it open. Open your invisible zipper and with the iron set on the minimum heat, gently press the zipper teeth flat, pushing the teeth away from the zipper tape like this. Now open the zipper and place it right sides together with the skirt along the center back seam. Start by placing the top of the zipper teeth just below the waist seam at the fold crease and pin it in place, aligning the teeth with the seam line. Then using an invisible zipper foot or regular zipper foot, sew down the zipper as close as possible to the zipper teeth all the way down until you reach the point where the back seam begins. After sewing the first side, close the zipper, then flip the skirt to the other side and pin the remaining zipper side to the other side of the back skirts. Make sure you place the top of the zipper the same way as before, just below the waist seam. Then open the zipper and sew it in place just as before. Also, make sure you open the zipper all the way down until the zipper end. After sewing both sides, close the zipper and make sure the waist top edges are aligned. Next, open the zipper again and folding the top part of the zipper like this, fold the waist facing over the zipper to place it right sides together with the skirt. Then sew along the center seam edges. Finally, turn the facings right side out, push the corners and give them a good press. Now into sewing the pockets, which is the same process for both dresses. Take the 4 pocket back pieces and finish the curved edges using an overlocker or a zigzag stitch. Next, with right sides together, place the pockets onto the skirt pieces matching the side seam notches, then pin and sew them together along the pocket edge. Do the same with all 4 pockets. And then finish the side seam edges. dress B, make sure to finish the facing together with the side seams. Press the seams flat, then press the pockets outwards and understitch the pocket opening 1 to 2 mm from the seam edge. Now the following steps are only for dress A. Skip ahead to this minute if you're making dress B. Start by sewing 2 rows of parallel lines along the top edge of the skirt front without backstitching. To make this stitch, set your sewing machine stitch length to its widest. Make sure these stitching lines are within the 1 cm seam allowance and leave long tails of thread on each side. Next, grabbing only the top threads of both lines, gently push the fabric to the opposite side to start gathering. Keep gathering the fabric until the width of the skirt matches the width of the bodice hem between notches plus 2 cm for seam allowances. Distribute the gathers evenly and secure with a knot on each loose thread. To create the elastic tunnel, fold the skirt back top edge 5 mm towards the wrong side and press. Then fold again 1.5 cm and press again. Then pin and sew about 2 mm from the inner fold edge around the entire top edge. Then with the help of a safety pin, insert the elastic into the tunnel, making sure you secure each elastic end with a pin. Then to keep the elastic in place, sew a few stitches back and forth within the seam allowances like this. Now the rest of the steps apply for both dress A and B. If you're making dress B, your skirt will look a little bit different, but the process is exactly the same. Place the skirt front and back right sides together, aligning the side and pocket edge, and pin them together. Note that the skirt front should be 1 cm bigger than the skirt back at the top edge. Start sewing from the top until you reach the top of the pocket. Then with the needle in the fabric, lift the presser foot, pivot the fabric and continue to sew around the pocket edge. When you reach the side seam, pivot again and sew down until you reach the bottom. Press the side seams flat, then press them towards the front. Next, with right sides together, place the front skirt onto the bodice, aligning the top edge with the bodice bottom edge. Then pin in place, matching the center front notches, and sew along the entire bodice opening between side seams. sure you match the skirt side seams with the notches at the end of the bodice opening. Press the seams flat, then press the seam allowances towards the bodice. Turn the bodice wrong side out, and for this next seam, you'll need to place the skirt inside the bodice. You can try putting the entire skirt inside as I'm doing here. However, if it's not possible, just partially put the skirt inside so you can work around it more easily. Now, aligning the main and lining bodice, pin them together along the bottom edges. Then sew from the previous seam, stopping around the princess seams, leaving an opening in the center. Clip the curved edges, and then turn the entire dress right side out. To hem the skirt, fold the bottom edge 5 mm towards the wrong side and press. Fold again 1 cm and press. Then pin and sew about 1 to 2 mm from the inner fold edge along the entire skirt bottom. A quick tip to remove bulk at the side seam: clip the seam allowances at the second fold like I'm doing here. To finish the dress, turn the bodice right side out, then fold the lining opening seam allowance to the inside, aligning it to the waist seam. Pin in place and hand stitch it with an invisible stitch, also known as ladder stitch, to close the opening. Then attach the D-rings to the shorter waist tie with a couple of sewing machine stitches or hand stitches. And now your Anya dress is complete.